Do we criticize Hot Toys in the same manner we do other companies? Because this is something that actually came to be because how much of a hypocrite Carlos is. Because Riley knows about this. Because not really, I just like messing with him. But we were talking about how much we criticize Hot Toys. Is it fair? Is it just? Do we criticize other companies to the same degree and so forth, right? So I wanted to ask this question. Do we actually criticize Hot Toys more harshly? Do we give them more leniency because they have such a long, lengthy track record? Do we criticize InArt in the same way we criticize Hot Toys, at least with the prototypes, right? Do we criticize statues the same, like J&D, the same way we criticize Hot Toys? Threezero even. Do we criticize Asmus more harshly? Star Ace, right? Do we give them all the same treatment, or do we give Hot Toys a harsher treatment, or like I said, more leniency because they've released so many bangers? Marco, I want to start with you. How do you approach this? Do you think we're fair as collectors overall? Do we criticize Hot Toys unfairly, too light? What do you think?
Yeah, I think because Hot Toys is the top dog, they get the most harsh criticism, undoubtedly, right? You look at how many figures they've released this year, how many of them have been really great, how much money I know a lot of us either on this panel or watching this have given them, and yet we're still very, very harsh when it comes to grading their figures. And I think that's because, Will, you said they've kind of set this high bar. And so anytime that they don't meet those expectations, we're going to, throw a whole bunch of criticism their way because we know how great they can do. But, at the end of the day, they're a pretty well-oiled machine regardless of the delays or of certain misses with figures. I think when it comes to the 1/6 game, they're just undoubtedly putting out the quality and quantity that is unmatched. So I think that's the reason why they're getting so much harsher criticism versus like InArt. I think the community's starting to turn on a bit. We'll see what happens, end of this year, early next year, but they have done nothing so far, and yet they were the darling for so long. But, now that, things are going to release soon, now we're really going to start to see if we apply the same criticisms to them that we have to Hot Toys. So, but yeah, and Hot Toys has already had such a proven track record in the past or this year alone. So, it's a bit unfair, but that's what happens when you're on top.
Yeah, it's true. That's what she said. So
yeah, I was waiting for that.
That's amazing.
Marco, Riley and I's brains are in sync, bro.
Yeah,
Walked right
as soon as I heard
Marco
on top,
he set me up for that one. That was like an alley-oop.
That's right.
So, but anyway, so by the way, so what I would say, that I've said this quite a bit, actually, now I'm throwing myself off the train of thought. So what I would say is that, like, Marco, we hold them to a higher standard because we know what they're capable of. So I understand also we are paying, I guess, premium prices for these, right? This is not nothing. And I know we've all talked about this. Carlos talked about this. We've all talked about it. This Loki is probably $300 out the door. You add another $100, you're almost at a PS5. So it's not cheap. It's not nothing. And they should be held to a high standard for that and accountable. So it is something for sure that I think we want to hold them to a high standard because, one, they're capable of it. And one, I feel like we're paying for it. Yeah, we're not paying custom prices. We're not paying $2,000 for Loki. But, at the end of the day, it's pretty reasonable. But we're still shelling out a lot of money for these things. It's not nothing money by any stretch. So I think that's why maybe we do criticize them a little more harshly. I've always said, no matter the scale, the higher the price, the harsher the criticism. That's just how it goes. That goes with anything in life, not just collectibles. If it's a J&D and it's $3,000 or $2,500, I'm going to criticize it more harshly. I'm going to judge it more harshly because I'm paying a hell of a lot more for it. Even if it's the best in its own scale or market, I'm still going to judge it harshly because it needs to be. I need to judge it very critically at that price. So that's kind of how I'm viewing it. But Riley,
and
I want to let you jump in.
Sorry, Will. Just really quickly, I think that's kind of like the nature of our society right now, though, too, in terms of being very critical. We've given people so many avenues in terms of like Yelp, you can criticize any business or restaurant. Twitter, you can go on and flame just about anybody from a sports team to an actor to a movie. IMDb, there's the fan results. So like everyone is able to have an opinion and kind of channel it. So I think the criticism is just par for the course with our 21st century society.
Yep. And I think that's the hard part, Marco, figuring out the line of like constructive criticism and obnoxious criticism, right? I feel like that's kind of the line where it's like, excessive criticism, I guess I could say. So I think we're, as a community, pretty fair overall, though. I do think we're pretty fair. I like to think so. But Riley, what do you think, man? Do we criticize Hot Toys, similarly to other companies?
I'd say that I'm kind of in agreement with the whole panel here. I'd say that a lot of the reason why we criticize them so much is the price tag, and I think that in cases it's definitely justified. I mean, we look at the way Hot Toys is kind of like forming right now, and the algorithm that a lot of figures are just getting even more expensive just as the months go. Like they're not going to drop down and give us lower, cheaper prices unless it's just something that they can just make super quick and easy. But every figure we've seen really is just getting that $10 bump, $10 bump, $20 bump, like a lot higher and higher. So I think that as that happens, a lot of our criticisms start to increase a lot higher because we're just expecting a really, really like premium product because a lot of the prices are high. And a lot of people say with InArt, there's a lot of us who are just like giving them like the pass, like, oh, it's fine, it still looks great, but we're being critical with them too. Like there's no doubt about it. The prototypes, like we've explained, the prototypes look very good, but at the end of the day, they're still a prototype. It's not the final product. The Joker, I mean, that looked amazing. It looked incredible. A lot of people say that's a home run. But if we look at the figure that they recently released, which was, I believe, the Aragorn, that was super controversial. Like a lot of people are like, oh, this is very bad for this price. Like you can't really be doing this InArt. So I think that we do criticize like certain companies as they have those premium prices. And InArt, obviously, they're like right now the highest when it comes to the 6 scale. So we're putting them up on a high pedestal. I mean, they're a new company. We're trying to see them strive to do really great things, but we also are being very healthy with our criticism. And I think that's important, like you said, like to not be in a certain way where you're being like obnoxious or toxic. Like we obviously want to be respectful in a manner when we're just saying, oh, if you can improve this would be really great, rather than just like bashing the artist who's doing it, because that's just not cool. So that's what I'd say. And I think that it is justified to have your, like I said, constructive criticisms rather than in that toxic manner. And I just think it is because at the end of the day, it's working because whenever we're adding these criticisms, when it comes to streams, when it comes to Facebook groups, like we have in the place for collecting, like a lot of people are just being honest about things, but very respectively, no negative comments. And Hot Toys are listening. I mean, we looked at, like you said, Will, it's the perfect one is Peacemaker. I mean, that I still don't think that would be updated if it wasn't for the community talking about the figure. It got hugely, massively improved. It's like, okay, this looks like realistic. It looks way better. They fixed the seams, like they made them buffer. That was a total win, and I think that was mainly from the community. We can also talk about even the Gandalf. That was one that the staff thing with Collecting Weekly, they kind of brought up that level where they're like, okay, if you can do this would be amazing, because I just think that it's not acceptable to not have this, in my opinion. And then look what happened. They got the staff, and it all worked out. So I think that having that healthy level of criticism is totally fine to do it with companies with premium prices.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm with you guys 100% on this one. So guys, I want to move on from this one.